You wake up after 8 hours of sleep, and you feel absolutely exhausted. Not just a little tired, completely drained, like your battery never actually charged overnight. You drag yourself out of bed, and by the time you've made coffee, you're already wondering how you're going to survive until lunch. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And it's not because you're lazy or weak. There's a specific reason your body feels broken during the day, and it all comes down to a hormone most people have never heard of. If you're dealing with this exhaustion trap, subscribe to the channel because we're about to show you exactly what's happening inside your body right now. The culprit is cortisol, your body's natural alarm hormone. Cortisol is supposed to rise sharply in the morning. That's what wakes you up, gives you focus, and powers you through your day. Your cortisol should peak within 30 to 45 minutes of waking, then gradually decline as the day goes on. That's the healthy pattern. But when you're stuck in this exhaustion trap, something's gone wrong. Your cortisol isn't rising the way it should in the morning. Instead of that sharp, energizing spike, it rises slowly and stays too low for hours. Your body never gets that alarm signal it needs. So even though you technically slept, your nervous system never got properly activated. You're biologically stuck in a low-energy state before your day even starts. This is why you can sleep 9 hours and still feel like you haven't rested. It's not about the quantity of sleep. It's about whether your cortisol is doing its job. And here's where it gets interesting. The reason your cortisol pattern is broken isn't random. It's directly connected to something that affects roughly half the population in ways they don't even realize: your estrogen levels. If this is clicking for you, and you're starting to understand why mornings feel so impossible, drop a like. Estrogen dysregulation, meaning your estrogen is either too high, too low, or cycling erratically, directly suppresses your morning cortisol surge. When estrogen is imbalanced, your HPA axis, which is the control center that tells your body to release cortisol, doesn't get the signal it needs. So your cortisol stays flatlined in the morning, instead of rising to meet the day. This creates that crushing daytime exhaustion. You're not tired because you're not sleeping enough. You're tired because your hormonal system has lost its ability to properly activate in the morning. Your body is essentially telling your brain that it's the middle of the night, even though it's 7 in the morning and you have a full day ahead. The afternoon slump you experience around 2 or 3 p.m. is a direct result of this broken morning pattern. Because your cortisol never properly surged at dawn, you never built up the hormonal momentum you need to sustain energy through the afternoon. Instead, you crash hard. You find yourself staring at the ceiling at work, unable to focus, fighting to keep your eyes open. Some people describe it as feeling like they're moving through water. Everything feels heavy. Decision-making feels impossible. Your cognitive function drops, and you can't even understand why. You had your coffee, you had breakfast, but it doesn't matter. No amount of caffeine fixes this, because the problem isn't a lack of alertness chemicals. The problem is that your cortisol foundation was broken from the moment you woke up. This is the exhaustion trap. It's a vicious cycle where your broken cortisol pattern in the morning creates depletion throughout the day, and that depletion has real consequences. Your immune system weakens, your metabolism slows down, your ability to handle stress decreases dramatically. You become more reactive, more anxious, more emotional over small things. And all of this is happening because a hormone you probably didn't even know was the problem has fallen out of rhythm. The connection to estrogen dysregulation is the key that most people miss. Your doctor might run tests and tell you your cortisol looks normal or your estrogen looks normal because they're checking a single point in time. But the real problem is the pattern, the dynamic relationship between these hormones throughout your day and throughout your cycle. Estrogen dysregulation disrupts that pattern. It keeps your cortisol suppressed when it should be rising. And the result is that you're exhausted all day, struggling to function, wondering why your body feels broken when you're supposedly doing everything right. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're exercising, but you're still exhausted because nobody's told you to look at the cortisol-estrogen connection. That's what changes in the next section, because once you understand how estrogen hijacks your cortisol at night, we'll finally understand why you feel wired when you should be sleeping. Here's what actually happens when estrogen levels are elevated or dysregulated. Normally, cortisol follows a strict circadian rhythm. It rises sharply in the early morning to wake you up, peaks around 8 or 9 a.m., and then steadily declines throughout the afternoon and evening, hitting its lowest point around midnight. This decline is essential. It's your body's signal that it's time to wind down, that sleep is coming. But excess estrogen, whether from hormonal birth control, perimenopause, or chronic stress driving progesterone depletion, interferes with this natural descent. Estrogen suppresses an enzyme called 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, which is responsible for deactivating cortisol in your tissues. When that enzyme is compromised, cortisol lingers in your bloodstream longer than it should. Your evening cortisol doesn't drop like it's supposed to. Instead, it plateaus. It stays elevated. Your nervous system never gets the all-clear signal to relax. This is why you're wired at night, even though you're exhausted during the day. Your body is literally preventing itself from winding down because the estrogen-cortisol feedback loop is broken. And here's where it gets more complex. This effect isn't constant throughout the month if you're cycling. If you menstruate, your vulnerability to this wired-at-night pattern is highest during your luteal phase. The 2 weeks after ovulation, when progesterone should be rising. But if estrogen is also elevated during this phase, which happens with dysregulation, you get a compounding effect. Your cortisol refuses to drop. Your progesterone can't calm your nervous system, and you're left wired, restless, and unable to sleep, despite bone-deep exhaustion. Some people experience this year-round if they're on hormonal contraceptives or dealing with estrogen dominance from other causes. Others notice it gets dramatically worse in the second half of their cycle. The pattern is the same, though. The mechanism is the same. The solution is the same. You have to lower and rebalance estrogen, and you have to do it in a way that allows your cortisol to actually decline in the evening like it's designed to. This means 3 things. First, you need to support estrogen metabolism and clearance through your liver and gut. This includes eating cruciferous vegetables, supporting your microbiome with fiber and fermented foods, and reducing sources of external estrogen like plastics and conventional beauty products. Second, you need to stabilize blood sugar throughout the day so your cortisol isn't being repeatedly spiked by glucose dysregulation, which then drives more estrogen production as a compensation mechanism. And third, you need to rebuild progesterone through cycle syncing, consistent sleep, strength training, and if necessary, targeted supplementation or medical support. When you do these things, something remarkable happens. Your cortisol starts to decline again in the evening, like it's supposed to. Your nervous system gets the signal to relax. Your estrogen stops hijacking your nighttime cortisol. And suddenly, the daytime exhaustion improves too, because your cortisol is no longer being suppressed all day by the same dysregulation. You fix the estrogen-cortisol connection, and both problems start to resolve. This is why so many people who've tried every sleep hack, every supplement, every sleep schedule finally get relief once they address the hormonal root. It's not that you're broken. It's that your hormones have been sending your body conflicting signals, and nobody was helping you decode them. Now you know what to look for. And more importantly, you know what to actually do about it. If this finally makes sense of what you've been experiencing, I'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss the next time we decode something your body's been trying to tell you. And if this helped clarify why you felt stuck between exhaustion and restlessness, please like this video. Most importantly, I'm curious. Have you noticed your wired-at-night feeling is worse at certain points in your cycle, or is it consistent all month? Drop that in the comments, because your pattern might tell us a lot about what's actually driving